And Troy alluded to something late in the ball game. He says, in his tenure, when he'd go back to the Cowboys, he said there's only been one time that they had one voice, and that was Jimmy. And we had unbridled success, but Jerry didn't like that. You see, it's not good enough for Jerry to get handed the Super Bowl trophy. Jerry wants to be front and center. He wants to be the center of attention. And so I don't see, Skip, I'm reading the story that Jerry's family is in the coaches' meeting.
I read that in Bob Sturm last night in The Athletic.
Skip, you covered.
I've never heard that.
Thank you.
Never ever heard of that.
And I've been and I've been the owner.
Members of the family sit in coaches' meeting. I don't know if that means grandkids or sons and daughter or I don't know.
Anyone in the family invited? Come on in.
I've never heard
Get
that
the game
either.
plan.
Now, Mr. Bolin probably said it when things were going bad. Sure, I'm sure he probably said in and we'll see what's going on. Okay, Mike, how are we gonna get this thing turned around? Or Dan, how are we gonna
I would think that would be a closed door with Mike,
right?
Not in a big.
But the family sitting in on coaches' meeting.
Yeah.
Really? And like you mentioned, Troy's like, that something needs to change with the power structure in order for you to get a different result. Skip, they said insanity is doing something over and over again and hoping for a different result. Well, if you do the same thing over and over again, my grandfather would tell my brother, and I said, boy, you do the same thing, do what you've always done, you get what you always got. Okay, Jerry, you're doing what you're doing, and you see what it's getting you? At some point in time, Skip, he needs to change it, but he can't. Because, like you said, he bought it because he wanted to be a star. He wanted to be the Cowboys. I mean, when you think of Dallas Cowboys, you think of Jerry Jones. You don't think of a player. You think of the owner. And there have been very few situations, Skip, it's been like that. It was like that with the Yankees. When George Steinbrenner, not when, when they had Babe Ruth and Mantle, and it wasn't like that then. But when you thought of the 70s and the 80s Yankees, you thought of him.
And you know what? Quick point about that. The players feared George Steinbrenner. Like if he was the lone voice, at least they were afraid of the voice.
Absolutely.
They're not afraid of Jerry Jones. He's like...
He's their buddy.
Yeah.
He's buddy. Yeah. He more have to have him over, come over there, have a drink with him, or see him by the club. Hey, send a bottle over there to that table.
Yep.
So, Skip, I don't see how, with the situation the way it is, because he wants a Sean Payton. He wants a Bill Belichick. He wants that type of guy, but he knows he'll never get that type of guy. Because those type of guys have ultimate control. Final 53, ain't nobody on this roster that we don't sign off on. And when it comes to free agency, you're not signing somebody that we don't approve of.
No.
I just don't see how it happens, Skip.
So, Ginny, would you please ask that question?
All right. Skip,
yes.
Can the Cowboys win it all with Jerry Jones in charge?
I'm actually the wrong guy to ask that question to because I'm the guy who not too long ago picked this year's Dallas Cowboys to get to the Super Bowl.
You did.
Right? So obviously deep down, I still believe they can. And I want to make this point before I get deeper into this. Remember, every owner in every sport is ultimately in charge.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It has to start with the owner every time. In Denver, it had to start with Pat Bowlen.
Yes.
Because Pat Bowlen had to make the first key decision. He's either going to have to hire a GM or if he wants to go ahead and hire a coach.
Right.
One way or the other, or both together.
Right.
He's got to make the right choice because if he makes the wrong choice, it will never work.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it starts there, but then usually the owner then steps back and lets the football people run the football operation for the most part, right? Except for this guy who played college football at a pretty high level. He was on a national championship team as a starting offensive guard, Jerry Jones. So he believes he knows football. I have my doubts about that. But occasionally he's surrounded himself with the right kind of people, such as Will McClay, who's his sort of draft master now. He's done a pretty good job.
He's done a great, unbelievable
pretty good job. There have been a couple of misses in here that disturbed me a little bit. But the point is that once upon a time, Jerry Jones made the gutsiest move that you could argue in pro football history. He bought this team, and he had the audacity, the courage, to step up on day number one and fire Tom Landry, who was literally godlike.
He was a legend.
He was godlike in Dallas, Texas. And trust me, Jerry took flack like neither of us have ever taken over that.
Yes.
That's when you need bodyguards on in Dallas. To move around Dallas and go to restaurants for about 2 years in there, you needed some protection because people took that personally.
Right.
But he had the guts to do what needed to be done at that point because they had disintegrated slowly but surely down to 3-13 in Tom's last year. And again, I wrote a whole book about this, and I revere Coach Landry in many ways, but it was time for him to go.
Right.
And only Jerry had the guts as an outsider, as an interloper from Arkansas to come to Dallas and pull that off.
Right.
And not only that, he bookended it with, I'm going to hire that upstart coach from the University of Miami, Jimmy Johnson, who's never coached a single down in the National Football League. And guess what happened? Super Bowls happened. Yeah. So can you give him some credit for that first move?
Yes.
Okay, and then obviously he got crossways with Jimmy over credit and over just respect because Jimmy paid him virtually none until he fired him.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Jerry turns right back around and hires another college coach who had never coached a lick in pro football and had been out of coaching in general for 2 full years.
Right.
Barry Switzer. I got to tell you, and I'm a Switzer fan because I know him so well, but that was a good move to me. It worked, didn't it? They won another Super Bowl.
But in the hiring of Jimmy Johnson, which was a great move, who was the voice? You didn't see Jerry doing all these press conferences. You didn't see Jerry doing all these interviews. Jerry wasn't addressing the team.
Nope, he was not.
That was Jimmy.
I would agree with that. Jerry did have some input into personnel decisions.
Yes.
And he did pull off the trade for Charles Haley, which was absolutely the catalyst for the first Super Bowl, really for all of them. But so you got to give him some credit, and I always did give him some credit. But yeah, Jimmy was the voice.
And the thing was, Skip, but at that time that he made that move for Charles Haley, the only locker room that could have handled Charles Haley was the Cowboys.
Okay.
That was it.
Yep.
Ain't nobody else going to handle him. Because you know what Charles was like during that time.
Okay, so the reason I can't completely condemn Jerry Jones as I sit here today, as he's on the verge, I believe, of bringing back Jason Garrett is...
I'm going to ask you that same question tomorrow.
Okay,
Can you condemn me?
Okay, all right, I got it. But it's not like they've ever had a disaster under him. They've never had a first pick in the draft kind of season where they just fell flat, where they had a Cincinnati year this year, right?
Well, they got Zeke. You got to get pretty high to get Zeke.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to get pretty high to get Tyron Smith.
Well, pretty high, but again... They had the 1-4-12 season, which was Troy's last season. Yeah, well, it was 2015 was a 4-12. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the Troy. It was 5-11.
Oh, okay.
Troy's last year.
That was 2000, right?
Campo's first 3 years, only 3 years, were 5-11 seasons. So again, 4-12 is the worst it's gotten. So we've never had a crater season where people could just say, Jerry, you failed.
Right.
He could always say, yeah, but a lot of times, like 2015. Romo got hurt.
Right.
See?
Right.
So he's hurt all year.
But see, Skip, that's the thing. You need to fail miserably so you can go out there and get you a franchise quarterback, or you go ahead and get you one of these elite level players that you can book in. Now, he has that in Dak for whatever reason. He doesn't want to play. But Skip, at some point, Skip, this is not normal. That the owner has a radio and a TV show.
Nope.
That the reporters are
not normal. It's unique. It's the only one.
Skip, the media. They don't rush in to talk to the quarterback. They don't rush in to talk to the star player. They gather around the owner who did not play, who watched the game from the owner's box, and they ask him, Jerry, what are your thoughts? Not Dak, not Amari, not Zeke. You said no.
Okay, so I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to cling to some notion this team can figure it out under this guy. What happened last year? He went and got Amari, and I'm pretty sure that was Jerry's deal.
Yeah, of course
right?
that is, yes.
Okay, so he goes and gets him, and I thought it was the move of the year because it just jump-started my team. It took off, and it goes 8-2 down the stretch and wins a home playoff game against Russell Wilson. Pretty good. Pretty good, right? And it played the Rams, for what it's worth, within a touchdown. It's a one-score game. It's 30-22. I didn't like the way this started. The defense came out lifeless again. And
the quarterback came out lifeless, too.
No, he played really well in that game, actually, and brought them back and had a much better QBR than Jared Goff. But they lost 30-22 out here in L.A.